Hello everyone, welcome to another video. It is me, Desiree, and today I wanted to share some of my sentimental plants. And I actually have a lot more sentimental plants than I realized. I only brought in 5 here to talk about today, but I have like, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there that I'm not going to talk about. So if you want to see a part 2 of this, let me know. I have a bunch of plants that mean a lot to me. Like if something happened to them, I would genuinely feel sad. I might shed a tear, who knows? But I brought in 5 to talk about today, and I would love to hear what some of your sentimental plants are, whether someone gave them to you, it was like a rescue that bounced back and you're really proud of yourself for. I don't know, just different things. You know, plants mean different things to everybody, and I would love to hear some of your sentimental stories about your plants. So I have 5 here to talk about today though. The first one I want to mention, it doesn't look good, okay? It doesn't look good, and I'm not sure what happened to it, but this is a peace lily. This is a peace lily that has seen better days. I brought in my little scissors because I'm gonna cut a couple of these old leaves off. This one is sentimental to me because my grandma bought it for me when I was first getting into plants a couple of years ago. And by a couple of years, I literally mean 2 years ago. We were at Lowe's or Home Depot, and I remember she said everybody needs a peace lily, and she picked up this plant and bought it for me, and I had never loved a plant more. It had so much foliage, and the leaves are like dark glossy green but really kind of soft, and I would just touch it and fluff it all the time, and I don't know what happened. I genuinely don't know what happened. I don't know. If you have a peace lily and this kind of stuff is happening to it, with this like black, soft leaf stuff, let me know, because I always thought that was like overwatering. Maybe the plant wasn't drying out enough, but I also think I made a lot of oopsies with this plant because, of course, people always tell you that peace lilies like to stay wet, but they don't necessarily want to be wet all the time. They just don't like to dry out completely in between waterings. And I want to say I was overwatering this plant, but who knows? There are a lot of new leaves growing back. Like you could see some new growth in here, like all these little baby leaves are new. And I did just put it in this different pot here because I thought maybe it needs to be repotted. I don't know. I'm just gonna cut off some of this stuff here to make it look brand new. So if my grandma's watching this, sorry, I did not know what the heck I was doing with peace lilies. And I do have a couple more peace lilies now, and they're doing really, really well. So I want to say this was just a lot of beginner oopsies that I made on this plant, thinking that it needed to be completely wet when it really doesn't. Is that what is that? Oh, it's nothing, it's dead. You know, thinking that it needed to be completely wet when it really doesn't want that kind of care. And I think there is a fine line between moist and wet. And I'm pretty sure I thought moist, wet meant sopping wet. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened to this poor baby. But I'm hoping it's gonna make a comeback and it'll bounce back. Because now I have been letting it dry out in between waterings. And I mean, does it look good? I don't know, but you know what? It's still here, and I've had it for at least 2 years. I mean, you know what? It's got some character, and I love it a lot, and I will try anything to save this plant. Okay, the next sentimental plant to me is kind of an interesting one, and this is one that I didn't realize I had as long as I have, and it's this pepperomia frost. In the video, it's coming off like a different type of pepperomia, but it is the frost variety. I think it's just the way the lighting is hitting it that's coming through the window. And it's growing these little flower things here that are called inflorescence. And I know a lot of people say to cut those off because it's putting energy into this instead of this, but I don't really care. Like, I want the plant to do whatever it wants to do, and I think these are cute and cool. Sometimes I will cut them off, sometimes I don't, but for the most part, I like the plant to do different things, you know? I'm not always obsessed with it trying to grow as many leaves as possible. But that's what they say. If you cut them off, it might grow new leaves. I don't know. But I have had this plant for a little over 2 years. Again, this is one of my first plants, and I didn't realize that. But one of you guys had left me a comment on my first plant collection video, which is actually not on this channel, it's on my other channel. Because back then, when I first started getting into plants, I tried to incorporate the plant videos into my channel that I already had that was about beauty products, and it didn't really like mesh well. I didn't like doing it too much, so I think I only did maybe 5 videos on that channel, and one of them was a plant collection. So I'll link that in the description box in case you want to watch it. But this plant is in that video, and I thought, wow, I've had this. This was one of my first plants I ever bought. And this is a really interesting plant because all of these leaves are new. Every single original leaf that was on this plant has fallen off. But one thing that's cool about this one is that there are always new leaves growing in. Like this one here, I think is probably gonna fall off soon. But new leaves are always growing in. This plant is completely new with new baby growth, and I really love it. I've had it the whole time in the same pot that it came in from the store, in the same soil, and from what I have learned over the years, pepperomias don't like to be repotted that much. At least every single one I've tried to repot just goes downhill very quickly. The soil does pull away from the pot a lot because it stays dry. Like this plant likes to stay dry. It's one of those leaves that should feel really, really firm. And I really only water it when it gets a little bit limp, and it's doing fine with that kind of care. And I love this one a lot. If anything happened to it, I would be really sad. And I always see new ones at the store with like the big, beautiful silvery leaves. And as much as I want to buy one, I like my little like regenerating peperomia frost here that I've had for a really long time and somehow haven't killed. Okay, we have one of not only my sentimental plants, but one of my favorite, if not top 3 favorite plants of all time. This is Creeping Charlie. You guys know him, you know him well. I just repotted one of these in a video recently that looks so much better. This is not that plant actually, this is the OG Charlie. I had a plant that I used to call Charlie, if you didn't know, and I repotted it into a really big pot, and these plants have the tiniest root systems ever. So it might look like this plant needs a new pot, but it doesn't. Like the roots are probably this big in here and they're so small. So I thought, bigger plant, it needs a big pot. And I put it in a big old pot. It stayed wet way too long. It got root rot really bad. And now thinking back on it, I know that it was root rot. So I cut off all of the pieces that were still good, and I put them in a jar of water, and they rooted. They took a really long time because, like I said, it's a really slow root growing plant, but it finally grew enough where I was able to pot it in this pot. And it is exploding with growth. Like it's longer than the pot. It's putting out this big old branch here. This plant also flowers. Last year no, it was the year before last, I think. Or was it last year? It flowered. It flowers all over it. It was so pretty. I did show it in a video. And this is a sentimental plant to me because this plant has been through it all. I bought this at Osuna Nursery because I just discovered them and I was buying up all the inventory. And I bought this one thinking it was an indoor plant, but I also thought it may be an outdoor plant. But when I had it in the house, it was getting all this black stuff all over it, like black crusty tips. Like the plant was not doing well. And my boyfriend's the one that told me, you know my boyfriend, Danny Trejo, he told me, throw the plant outside. And you know what I did? I put it outside and it was in direct sun all day long. It was dry as a bone. It kept falling over. And I would just water it constantly to see like maybe I could bring it back to life. And you know what happened? It exploded outside. Like it loved it so much. It put up with so much. It was out there in the elements. Like I don't know why it stuck by me for so long, but once I moved here, that's when the plant really took off. And I think it's because I had more windows here at my apartment. I literally had one window with really bad, like we had blinds on it and we had to keep it closed all the time because the neighbors, it was the whole thing. So we really had no light in there. So I don't blame the plant for wanting to die. But yeah, this is sentimental to me because it was one of my first plants again. I put it through a lot and it survived. It died. I propagated it. It's living again. And I just love it. I mean, what isn't there to love about this plant? It's got the glossy, thick leaves. I want to say this is an ivy, but I really don't know, but I feel like it is. It has never had a pest. I've had this for a long time. It's never had a spider mite, never had anything. It's weird. And it just grows and grows and grows. And I think it's really important when you're growing plants in your house to sometimes just get a win, you know, like, because when you're first starting out, you're going to kill a lot of plants. You're not going to know what you're doing. You're going to make little oopsies like I did on this peace lily. And I think when you get something like this that just grows in whatever and does great all the time, it's awesome to see, because you're like, awesome, I know what I'm doing. I'm an indoor gardener. I can take care of plants. And I think it's really cool to have a win like that. So this is a prolific grower. I absolutely adore it. And I'm so glad that he's still with me, because it's my favorite. And if something ever happened to it, well, for one, I'd cut it all up and try to save it. But it's a beautiful plant, and I did buy another one because I loved it so much. The next plant that is sentimental to me is this big chunky cactus. I don't know what this is called, but doesn't it look like, I don't know, a Christmas tree or something like that? Let me see if you can see the texture like in the leaves. It's just so cool. And this was the first cactus I ever bought. And now I love cactus. I look at every single one of my cactus every day. Every day I go look at every single one, because I can't believe how big they're getting, how much they're growing. I love when I water one and then the next day it just goes poof, and it plumps up. Just so cool. I absolutely adore cactus now, and this was my very, very first one. I bought this at the grocery store, Smith's, that has the best plants, and they had this huge like outdoor rack of cactus and succulents. And now, thinking back, I wish I had bought more varieties, because now I think like, I should have bought that, should have bought that, should have bought that, I should have bought that. And I always hoped that they would bring the rack back, and I never saw it again. But this was one I bought there. I think it was $6. And I was just taken by it. I thought it looked cute. It was like this little chunk of a cactus. It looks like a little tree. I did repot it in this pot right away, and it's been living in here ever since. This one is a very, very slow grower. I know some of my cactus, I feel like they get bigger by the minute, but I don't think this one has grown ever. Like, I've never noticed it bigger. I've never noticed it chunkier or anything, but that's okay, because it's just living life. And this is the first cactus also that made me realize that cactus wasn't boring, and that cactus is so cool, and there are so many cool varieties. I love it. I love it so much. I don't think anything's ever going to happen to it, because it's just a really easygoing plant. I do have it living in the windowsill in an east-facing window. I used to have this in here, and it got sunburned so bad. Like, the whole backside was like dark purple, and I felt like, oh crap, I think it's getting too much sun. So once I moved it out, that kind of stuff went away. Like, I don't even see it on here anymore. But yeah, I leave it in that window now. Maybe that's why it's not growing. Anyway, love it so much. If you are a cactus lover, I would love to know, what was your first purchase of a cactus, and what was it, and what made you like fall in love with them, because they're so cool now, and I have that cactus to thank. So my fifth sentimental plant that I want to talk about in this video is a plant you've seen before. It's Little Fiddle. This is a Bambino version of the fiddle leaf fig, and it's not so Bambino anymore. It's huge, and I wish so badly I could go back in time and take a picture of this on the first day that I had it, because every time I look at it, I'm like, it looks the same, but I know it has grown so much. So the reason this is sentimental to me is because my boyfriend bought it for me, and it was actually a plant I don't want to say I didn't want it. I had never really heard of a Bambino fiddle leaf fig before. I only know the big giant ones, the big old tall ones that everyone says is so fussy, all the leaves fall off all the time, and it's mostly because you're trying to grow a tree inside of your house. That's why the plant is fussy, you know? But anyway, I never really like got into it. Like, I never understood the hype on it. I didn't tell my boyfriend that, of course, and he bought me this, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, I was appreciative and I really liked it, but I immediately was scared and nervous, because I thought, I've only heard really negative things about the fiddle leaf fig. that plant is gonna die. It's gonna die so fast. But the first thing I did when I got it is I found a spot for it with the most light, and I have never moved it. It lives on the kitchen counter, right under the skylight. It's out of the way. It's just like a perfect spot for it, like it was meant to be there. And it has filled out insane. Like it has just bushed out. It's constantly putting out new leaves, like just left and right new leaves. And I think if you like the fiddle leaf fig, but you're intimidated by getting a big giant one and spending a bunch of money, look into the Bambino one. This is a Costa Farms plant, and I'm pretty sure he got it at Walmart, because a lot of the plants they have that are like this are always $20. They do come in a pot, and I don't think this one did. It was just in a plastic container. I have never repotted it. I've never fertilized it because I'm afraid to do anything with it. The only thing I did was I kind of aerated the soil the other day, and I topped it off with some new soil on the top. I water it when it's completely dry, and I never move it. I leave it in the exact same spot all the time. It is doing so good. And of course it's sentimental because my boyfriend bought it for me, and it has just exploded with growth. I love this plant a lot, and I would highly encourage any of you that are thinking of buying a big giant fiddle leaf fig, but you don't have anywhere to put it, look into this one. I always see it at Lowe's has it usually anywhere that carries Costa Farms usually has this. So my tips are as much light as possible, don't move it if you don't have to, and water it when it's dry, and that's literally all I do, and it's doing amazing. So yeah, this is another plant that is absolutely sentimental to me, and if anything happened to it, I would be devastated. But yeah, that is it. I would love to know what some of your sentimental plants are and the stories behind them. I have plenty more sentimental plants, so if you want to see part 2, let me know and I can do it. But that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe so you don't miss my next one, and I will see you later in another video. Goodbye.